Jet skis are built for fun, but out on open water, things can flip quickly. Today, we'll look at cases where jet ski riders never made it back to shore. From a content creator chasing the perfect shot until his ski spun in circles, to a woman drifting near shore until the waves took over and left her with no way out. Hi, it's Timothy, and welcome back to Last Memories. It was June 18, 2016, on Lake Havasu in Arizona. The lake was busy that morning, several jet skis already out on the water, and where the recreational traffic picked up, the surface got choppy fast. Richie Coburn was 27 years old and had been doing this kind of work for a few years by that point. He sold action footage, the kind you see on travel pages and outdoor media accounts. He wasn't just out there having fun, he was working, equipped with a chest-mounted camera already strapped on and a 360-degree handheld unit clipped to his gear bag on the ski. Before he got going, he told another rider nearby that he needed what he called a clean fall with a fast recovery shot. I get that his decision was part of his job, but is the risk worth more than the videos? The jet ski he was on that day was an older rental unit. The lanyard system was worn out in this particular machine. Another rider near him actually brought this up before he pushed off. There had been a recent incident with a runaway ski in the area, and the guy told Richie to make sure the lanyard was on tight. Richie clipped it to the front of his vest instead, loosely. He likely figured it would pull free on impact the same way a wrist attachment would. He spent some time on the water first, running aggressive turns, getting a feel for how the ski handled at speed. Several other riders nearby were already filming with their own devices. It was that kind of scene, people capturing each other constantly. Nobody thought much of what Richie was doing. It looked like someone warming up for a trick. He made a few wide arcs, then started tightening them, building speed. By the time he committed to the fall, he was moving at close to 45 miles per hour. He jerked the handlebars hard to the side to force the ejection. It worked. He came off the ski fast, flying somewhere between 12 and 15 feet before hitting the water chest first. The impact was hard. Witnesses said it was immediately clear the wind got knocked out of him. He came up struggling, not recovering the way a planned fall usually goes. And then the lanyard pulled free from his vest on impact. Not tight enough to stay, and the engine kept running. That angle kept the throttle applied and locked the craft into a circular path. With the handlebars locked and throttle partially stuck, the engine kept pushing the ski in tight circles. The jet ski didn't drift away. It didn't slow down. The first time it came around, the hull hit him in the side and rolled him face down. The second pass was worse. The intake area near the rear of the ski caught his lower left leg as it passed, tearing into the calf. The third pass brought the handlebars across the back of his head and pushed him under the surface. A fourth circuit caught his torso and put significant force into his rib cage. The ski kept going after that, completing more loops before the throttle gradually backed off and the craft began to drift. The other riders couldn't get close. Every time someone tried to move in, the ski came around again. Waiting was the only safe choice, but it also meant losing valuable time. Once the skis slowed enough to approach safely, the nearby riders moved in together. Richie was pulled out of the water onto a flotation board. He was unresponsive. Emergency responders reached the scene and confirmed he had no signs of life. The injuries were extensive: blunt trauma to the head, severe damage to the lower leg, and compression injuries to the chest. The official finding recorded the death as a loss of control tied to improper safety attachment on an older rental unit. The footage devices attached to Richie's gear were later recovered from the water, including part of the failed stunt attempt. Some of the riders who witnessed the runaway ski reportedly stopped riding for the rest of the day, while the rental unit involved was taken out of service during the investigation. Richie's case showed how fast control can be lost on the water, but in the next story, the danger wasn't an accident at all. It was already waiting before the ride even began. It was August 2nd, 2017, in the Gulf waters off Galveston. The sea looked calm that morning, with small waves and clear sky. A few boats were far out, but most of the area was quiet. It wasn't crowded, and the water didn't look dangerous from the surface. Esperanza Fox was 34 years old and worked as an insurance clerk. She spent most of her days at a desk, checking forms and helping people with claims. She liked simple plans and safe choices. Not long before this trip, she updated her own insurance policy. That day, she went out on a jet ski with her partner, Daniel Ruiz. He told her they could ride farther out for a quiet, private time away from others. She agreed because she trusted him. She didn't have much experience offshore, so she relied on him to lead. Earlier that morning, Daniel prepared the jet ski himself. Investigators would later find that he had loosened a fitting on the fuel line, a simple, hard-to-notice change that would cause the engine to run rough and eventually stall. It is heartbreaking to know that the person Esperanza trusted the most would do this to her. They didn't ride side by side. Daniel stayed behind her, keeping a steady distance. At times, he held up his phone and filmed her as she rode ahead. From her point of view, everything felt normal. The water stayed calm and nothing seemed wrong. What she likely didn't know was that the area had known shark activity, especially when scent spread through the water. About a mile offshore, her jet ski began to slow. The engine sputtered, then stopped. She tried to restart it, but nothing worked. The craft drifted sideways with the current. Daniel did not rush in right away. He slowed his own jet ski and appeared to adjust something near his handlebars, creating the impression that he was dealing with his own issue before moving closer. After a short time, Esperanza moved to the back of the jet ski. She lowered herself into the water while holding onto the rear handle, likely trying to check the intake. While she was in the water, investigators believe Daniel had already scattered bait from his own craft at some point during the ride out. Fish scraps he had brought in a cooler, disposed of quietly without drawing attention. I keep thinking about how she probably thought nothing bad was going to happen. Everything looked totally fine, and that's what gives me the creeps. She was still holding the rear handle, partly in the water, when the attack happened. There was no warning she would have recognized, just the sudden force of it, pulling her away from the craft. The water around her changed quickly after that. The first bite hit her thigh and pulled her off the jet ski. She struggled and tried to climb back up using the rear handle. For a few seconds, she managed to hold on. Then the second bite struck her lower body, dragging her partly underwater. She came up again, still trying to stay with the craft. The water turned rough. More strikes followed, close together. Her grip weakened. Within moments, she lost hold completely. The movement in the water grew stronger, then slowly faded. After that, there was no sign of her at the surface. The jet ski drifted a few feet away as the water settled again. Boaters in the distance noticed the disturbance and began moving closer. By the time they arrived, only the drifting jet ski and scattered items remained. Daniel later reported that her engine failed and that the attack happened suddenly, saying he couldn't reach her in time. Investigators examined the jet ski and found that a fuel line fitting had been deliberately loosened. They also found bait residue on Daniel's craft and identified fish scraps consistent with material he had purchased. Partial footage recovered from Daniel's phone showed he stayed at a distance even after her jet ski stopped, and there was no clear attempt to approach quickly. Further investigation uncovered purchase records showing Daniel had recently bought raw bait, matching the residue found on his craft. They also found that Esperanza had recently increased her insurance coverage. Investigators confirmed Daniel had been seeing another person and had made plans to leave the relationship. Financial records showed he would benefit from her policy. The case was no longer treated as a simple wildlife incident. Investigators found that the jet ski had been deliberately sabotaged and bait had been used to attract marine predators, leading authorities to classify the death as a homicide. Daniel Ruiz was later found guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. What happened to Esperanza was carefully planned and hidden, but the next story is the opposite. Everything unfolds fast, in plain sight, with no time to think. It was March 11, 2018, along a busy stretch of shoreline in Miami. The water had small waves, and people stood close to the edge watching jet skis pass by. A few riders moved back and forth near the beach, not too far from swimmers and families on the sand. River Mac was 41 years old. He worked as a police officer, though he was off duty that day. He was known for stepping in when something felt wrong. He didn't like to wait if he thought he could help. That afternoon, he saw a man rush off on a jet ski from a nearby dock. From what others later said, the man had just taken something and was trying to get away. River reacted immediately. There was no time to call it in. The rider was already speeding off into open water, and waiting even a few seconds would have meant losing him completely. He got onto another jet ski at the dock and started after him. I admire how dedicated River is. Even when he's on vacation, he's still willing to help out when duty calls. The chase stayed close to the shoreline. People nearby started noticing and raised their phones to record. The suspect kept his speed up, riding in a loose line along the water. River followed, slowly getting closer. Both jet skis moved fast, leaving wide trails of choppy water behind them. River knew how to ride, but he had no one guiding him, and there was no clear path ahead. As they pushed forward, another rider entered the same area. This third rider was just out for fun, crossing the water from a different direction. From later review, it seemed the rider was focused ahead and did not notice the chase. The sound of engines and the bright glare off the water made it hard to see what was happening nearby. River kept going instead of pulling back. He closed the gap to around 20 feet. At that moment, the suspect suddenly turned to avoid getting too close to the beach, cutting sharply across the water at speed. At the same time, the third rider continued forward, now heading straight into that same line. The gap between all three collapsed almost instantly. Everything overlapped in a split second. All three were moving over 40 miles per hour. The suspects turned through a rough wave sideways at the exact moment their paths crossed, and River's jet ski hit it at an angle just as the third rider reached him. There was no clear moment to steady or correct. The machines converged almost at once. The side impact happened immediately, not after a pause. The third rider slammed into River, crushing his lower body against his own jet ski and forcing him forward into the front bars. The force of the hit and the unstable water combined at the same instant, sending both machines spinning out together. One of them made brief contact over part of his body as they lost control, but it did not fully pass over him. River fell into the water right after, with no sign of movement. This reminds me of other stories I have shared about people who faces dangerous situations. Usually, it is not one big mistake that causes trouble. Instead, it is a bunch of tiny mistakes that happen one after the other. People on the beach pointed toward the crash right away. Nearby riders reached him within moments and pulled him from the water. He was not responding. Some bystanders waved for help while others backed their jet skis away to clear space. A few people on shore stepped closer but stayed out of the water, watching and signaling. Both jet skis showed heavy damage along their sides and front areas, matching a high-speed crash. Several phone videos captured the moment from different angles, showing how quickly all three paths converged with almost no gap between them. For me, this part always hits the hardest because there were so many people right there, and still nothing could be done once it happened. Some riders tried to keep the area clear, while others signaled toward the shore for more help. The water around them stayed rough from the earlier movement, making it harder to keep steady. People on the beach slowly stepped back as the scene became more serious, and the earlier excitement from the chase was gone. The final review found that the crash was caused by the three jet skis crossing paths at high speed, along with the unstable wave created during the sudden turn. River died from severe injuries to his lower body and chest caused by the side impact and crushing force. The suspect was later found and taken into custody. River rushed in to stop something wrong, but in the next case, no one was trying to stop it. Everyone was pushing things even further. It was July 4th, 2015 at the shoreline in Huntington Beach. The beach was crowded with people watching the water and enjoying the holiday. Jet skis moved in different directions, some close to shore and some farther out. There was no clear path in the water, just open space with riders coming and going. Reed Stark was 22 years old, a college student who liked to compete. He was the type who always wanted to be first, even in small things. That day, he joined an illegal jet ski race he had found online. From what others later shared, the race had no real setup. Riders just lined up in a loose group offshore, waiting for someone to give a signal. Reed wanted to prove he was faster than the rest, and he focused on getting ahead early. Several riders gathered side by side, facing along the beach instead of away from it. People on the sand were already recording the water because of the holiday. Some riders in the area were not part of the race at all, just passing through like normal. There were no lanes, no markers, and no one guiding traffic. Reed sat on his jet ski, revving the engine harder than most, ready to push speed right away. I've seen setups like this before. When there's no clear safety rules included, things can go wrong fast. When the signal came, it wasn't official. One rider simply moved first, and the rest followed. All the racers pushed their throttles at the same time. Reed accelerated hard, reaching high speed within seconds. His jet ski surged forward, cutting across the water as he tried to get ahead of the group. As they spread out, one of the other racers moved across Reed's path, trying to pass in front of him. Reed reacted quickly, turning his jet ski to avoid hitting that rider. That move pushed him out of a straight line and into a more open part of the water, where paths were less predictable. At the same time, another jet ski that was not part of the race was moving through the area in the opposite direction. Based on the video, that rider stayed on a steady path and speed, likely unaware of the race. The water between them was filled with heavy spray from multiple racers, and the bright afternoon sun reflected sharply off the surface, creating glare that made it harder to clearly see what was ahead. Reed continued forward at high speed. The other rider kept coming from the opposite direction. Between the spray, engine noise, and the glare bouncing off the water, their view of each other was broken into brief, unclear glimpses instead of a steady line of sight. They only lined up in each other's view at the last moment. The collision happened almost head-on, slightly off to one side, but still at high speed from both directions. The impact threw Reed forward over his handlebars. His upper body struck the front of the other jet ski before he was thrown into the water. One of the jet skis bounced after the crash and partially went over him as it lost control. Pieces broke off and scattered into the water. Both machines spun away from each other before slowing down. Reed did not move after he hit the water. Nearby riders shut off their engines and moved toward him. People on the beach pointed and kept filming as others rushed to help. Reed was pulled from the water within moments, but he showed no signs of life. The damage to both jet skis matched a high-speed impact, with broken parts along the front ends. The final findings confirmed that Reed died from severe injuries caused by the high-speed collision and the impact with the other jet ski. The event was classified as an unauthorized race with no lane control and active crossing traffic. Investigators concluded that the moment the boat appeared, the distance was already gone. I know he wanted to prove himself, but proving you're the fastest doesn't matter if the race itself is unsafe. That crash came from chaos and speed all at once, but the next story shows how danger can build slowly, almost too quiet to notice. It was September 9th, 2017, out on the water in Puget Sound. The sky looked clear at first, and the water was calm enough for small rides. A few boats sat farther out, not moving much. There was light fog in the distance, but it didn't seem close yet. Liam Dunn was 38 years old, a real estate agent who liked to ride his jet ski after work. It was his way to relax and clear his head. He had done this same route many times before, so he felt comfortable going alone. That day, he planned a quick ride before sunset. He knew there was some fog out there, but he believed he could finish before it became a problem. He launched his jet ski and headed out along his usual path. Instead of using any tools to guide him, he relied on memory. His phone sat in the footwell, and from time to time, he glanced down to check his direction. Ahead of him, a few boats were anchored in the water, sitting still. The late afternoon sun sat lower in the sky, and its reflections stretched across the water, creating a bright glare that made distant shapes harder to separate from the surface. I think this is something a lot of people can relate to. When you've done the same thing many times, it starts to feel safe and tend to ignore the warnings. As he moved farther out, the fog began to change. It didn't stay far away. It rolled in faster than expected, spreading across the water and closing the space around him. Within a short time, his view dropped to less than 30 feet. The clear path he had a moment ago was gone. Liam kept going at around 35 miles per hour. Instead of slowing down a lot or turning back, he tried to push through it. The sound around him started to feel strange. A horn could be heard somewhere nearby, but it was hard to tell where it was coming from. The fog made sounds bounce and shift, making direction unclear. The fog didn't stay even. It moved in waves, getting thicker and then slightly thinner for short moments. Liam stayed on his line, still trusting the path he remembered. At the same time, one of the anchored boats sat directly ahead of him, not moving at all. Although the boat should have displayed a visible anchor light in reduced visibility conditions, later review noted that no active light source was clearly visible through the fog, further reducing the chance of early detection. Because it was still daytime, the boat blended into the gray surroundings. Combined with the lingering glare reflecting off the water and the thick fog diffusing light, the boat's outline became difficult to distinguish until he was dangerously close. Liam kept moving forward, with very little space to react. The front of the boat became visible when he was only about 20 to 30 feet away. At his speed, that gave him less than a second to respond. There was no clear turn or stop that could avoid it. His jet ski slammed into the back of the boat. The front of his craft folded inward from the force. Liam was thrown forward, and his upper body hit the solid part of the boat first. After that, he fell back onto the damaged jet ski as it bounced and spun away. Part of his body dropped into the water as the craft drifted off. He did not move after the impact. People on nearby boats heard the crash, but they couldn't see where it came from right away. The fog made it hard to find the source. They used horn signals and moved slowly until they found the damaged jet ski drifting near the anchored boat. Liam was pulled out of the water, but he was not responsive. The damage to both the jet ski and the boat showed a strong forward impact. His phone was later found in the footwell where he had left it. Some nearby boaters stayed in place to guide others away from the area while help was being arranged. The fog continued to shift, making the scene feel closed in and quiet despite the number of people nearby. A few items from the broken jet ski floated nearby and were later collected, helping confirm the point of impact and direction of travel. The anchored boat showed clear marks along the rear where the collision happened. The final findings showed that Liam died from severe blunt injuries caused by the high-speed collision with the anchored boat. The investigation pointed to the sudden fog, his continued speed, and the very short reaction distance as the main factors. Our instinct is often to push through changing conditions to reach safety faster. When visibility drops, how do you determine the exact line between pushing forward and stopping completely? Liam faced a problem he thought he could push through, and in the next story, that same kind of thinking plays out much closer to shore. It was May 21st, 2016, at the shoreline in Panama City Beach. The water near the shore had small breaking waves, and people were swimming and riding jet skis close to the beach. Some areas looked calm, but others had waves rolling in over shallow sand. Mina Todd was 29 years old and worked at a warehouse. It was her day off, and she decided to rent a jet ski for fun. She wasn't very experienced, but she wanted to enjoy the water and take a few videos while riding. I remember the first time I rented a jet ski myself, I thought it would be simple. But the water changes fast, and even small waves can throw you off balance if you're not used to it. From what was later shared, she was given only basic instructions before heading out. She stayed near the edge of the breaking waves, not knowing how quickly that area could change. The jet ski she rented had already shown signs of trouble earlier that day. It had stalled once before but started again. Mina rode it out anyway, not fully aware that it could stop again. At one point, she slowed down and drifted while recording videos. During that time, the water slowly pushed her closer to a shallow sandbar where waves were breaking more often. She stayed in that same area instead of moving back to calmer water. The current and wind kept nudging the jet ski sideways. The waves around her grew more active, breaking in uneven lines over the shallow ground below. Then, the engine stopped again. This time, it did not restart. With no power, the jet ski began drifting freely. The water pushed it sideways into the incoming waves. Each wave struck the side of the craft, slowly turning it so it faced sideways to the surf instead of forward. As the waves hit from the side, the jet ski became unstable. A larger wave lifted it and rolled it slightly. Mina lost her balance and was thrown into the water beside it. She reached out and grabbed part of the handle for a moment, but the next wave hit almost immediately, snapping her grip loose before she could steady herself. That wave pushed the jet ski again, causing it to roll and shift near her. The body of the craft struck close to where she was as both she and the jet ski were carried in the same surge before the water moved it away. The motion was no longer controlled. The jet ski was now being pushed and turned only by the waves. Mina tried to stand, but the sandbar under her feet was uneven and kept shifting with each wave. The pull of the water was stronger than it looked from the surface, dragging her legs sideways while the breaking waves above kept forcing her back down, making it hard to stay upright. Every time she tried to get stable, another wave knocked her off balance. Waves didn't hold her in one place. They kept throwing her around. One surge knocked her forward, the next dragged her sideways, and the one after spun her as the water rushed back out. The foam made it hard to see, and the constant motion made it difficult to tell which way was up. Each time she tried to push herself up, another wave crashed over her, tumbling her head over heels and pulling her a short distance before the next one hit again. There was no pause between them, just a repeated cycle of being knocked down, dragged, and disoriented in the shallow surf. She went under again and did not come back up. People on the beach noticed the empty jet ski being pushed toward shore. Lifeguards and others nearby moved in and began searching the area where the waves were breaking. The water made it hard to see. Foam, sand, and constant motion limited visibility. They scanned the area carefully, focusing on where she was last seen. Mina was found shortly after in the surf zone, but she was unresponsive when brought out of the water. Some people nearby helped point out where they last saw her, while others stayed back to keep the area clear. The waves kept rolling in the same pattern, showing how strong the push toward shore had been the whole time. She died from drowning after being repeatedly forced underwater by continuous tumbling waves, unstable footing, and the constant push and pull of the surf zone rather than being held in one spot. The review also noted that the rental unit had known issues, and the surf conditions made it difficult to recover once she was separated from the craft. If you were out there for the first time, would you focus on the ride itself or on getting the perfect video?